Brian lives in Kamloops with his wife and 2-year-old daughter. He has a background in finance and agriculture, and therefore he understands the corporate why of the smart meter program and the negative effect it will have on all life, including our food sources, if it succeeds in being forced upon the very reluctant society. Brian has appeared extensively on radio talk shows and has been interviewed on numerous occasions on TV and in the print media. He's a dynamic speaker, as you've already seen, and he has an equally dynamic presentation, which you will find out about right now. Thank you, Brian, and welcome.
Thank you. One of the hydro videos, just before we get started, Cindy Verschuer, talking to the city council, had mentioned a word that I found very appropriate. The word was called accountable. Now, who am I accountable to? My wife, my son, my fellow citizens, my fellow men. Who is Cindy Verschuer accountable to? BC Hydro and her bosses, period. That is all. Who is Carl Riordan accountable to, who did their testing? His wireless patents, the money industry that he will be making money off of having these meters going onto your house. Some of the members of Health Canada work for Motorola and other companies of that nature. This is why this type of stuff happens. So I'm going to talk about the word accountability as we move forward. So health, again, one of my top topics among about 5 or 6 main topics that we'll be going over tonight. As Curtis talked about, very basic laws of the universe, magnetism, gravity, electricity, these things, we cannot deny them. This is how the universe operates. So you can't say you're a piece of tissue. You can't just say someone is meat. They have electrical properties. The earth has its own electromagnetic field, just like everything else. Even trees, as we can see here, they can get electricity out of trees. You can put voltmeters and all types of different stuffs up to trees, and they will show an electrical charge. This confirms this thought. This is not for peer review. And even down to the smallest things, bacteria, cells, viruses, all have an electrical charge. Algae, anything you can name has electricity. If it's alive, it has electricity. If you're alive, you have electricity. And same with me, as I showed earlier. Again, this is what we see. You have your own electromagnetic field. We start talking about the meters and all these problems. We're compromising your field, your entire function of your being. These are part of the equations that are left out of the, if they're not heating up, everything's safe. Trillions of electrical connections in the human body. Curtis was talking about that. Absolutely trillions. And millions are going off in your bodies right now. Just as you sit, you're waving your paper to try and keep yourself cool, breathing, thinking, talking, sleeping. All of this stuff is happening. If you're alive, it is happening. Again, every single function of your body is run on electricity. That's why when you're in the hospital and you're about to die, what do? They shock you back to life. They electrically charge your heart to allow you to live longer. That's what they do. They don't heat you up, they charge you up. So what we have now is more than not taking electricity into consideration, as I clearly showed with my device there. They deny that it actually exists. This denial allows them to proliferate this industry to the massive amounts that they have now. Otherwise, they'd be in liability. So this is part of how this happened. So we can see here, again, as Curtis talked about, and how everybody knows, you will actually be operating at a very specific and precise hertz and frequencies. When you're sleeping, when you're working, when you're relaxing, all of these things will happen. Right about now, 5 to 8, maybe 10 hertz, that'd be something that you're operating at. We start talking about meters, we're talking about hundreds of millions and billions of hertz. They're not compatible. Each one of your cells is a human antenna. All of your cells are a human antenna. I am compromised as a human antenna. So if I start sitting there with this cell phone, I am an antenna. And even without that phone, if those frequencies are bouncing around, I'm absorbing them. My cells have no choice but to obey the commands that are coming out of those towers and all over the place. So if it is your choice to use a cell phone, I have no choice but to be affected by that. So my choice to live a healthy life is being removed. And that's part of what's happening with hydro. What happens is what you see is a very simple equation. If you are not compatible, you start moving into electrical failure. It would just be like your 60 hertz light bulb and your light nightstand and running 80 hertz through there. Eventually, it's going to break down. But now with you, we're going from 8 hertz to hundreds of millions and billions of hertz, hundreds of thousands and millions of times a day. Do you think there's going to be a problem here? So again, this is what we see. This massive increase in cell phone uses, cordless phones, all these other types of device. I know people in here have these cell phones and they're wondering what we're going to be talking about. This is the part of it. This is only in 2009. That number is surely to have risen. 5 billion cell phone subscriptions on the planet. That's just cell phones. These are the towers, part of what Curtis was talking about. They're trying to tell you, you don't have a choice where these go. They can put one up right in your backyard and irradiate you where you stand, and they're trying to say you don't have a choice because somebody over there wants reception. He needs to Facebook while he's driving. So this is what we need to do. So you're going to be in the path of the radiation, okay? These things are everywhere. Like here, you can barely even see an area of Canada is not saturated in these signals. There's about 15, 16,000 cell phone towers. I bet almost all of you didn't even know what these things are or where they are. If you got a cell phone that works in this town, there's one here, at least one. And as they move into the 4G network, you must be hit by 2 towers at the exact same time in order for that to work. So they're going to keep moving up so people can watch their videos and do all this stuff. Microwave radiation into the brain. So as I'm talking about this 8 hertz, what do we decide to do? How many people have these base stations and cordless phones all over your house so you can answer the phone in the washroom and you're in the other room and you're outside and the phone works? What you have done is decided to remove the wire, and now you are the wire. You have entered yourself into an electrical equation that you have no business being involved in. Now I take the wire out of the phone that carries the voice. Now I need a microwave, and that brings that to the phone, to my head, and that penetrates through my head. So for the convenience of, stirring your sauce and talking on the phone or whatever you're doing, you've decided to microwave your brain. I don't know if that's going to be very convenient for you in the long run. Here is a pictorial example of what happens. You can see the penetration of the brain of the microwaves, vibrating your cells billions of times a second when you're only supposed to be at about 8 hertz. But they say if you're not heating up, you are safe, which is, of course, as you're probably understanding, a lie. Now what are we doing here? It's a little difficult to see. You can see these little children here in the womb. The mom's walking around with the cell phones. Everything's fine. And then they're even on the cell phones. And when they're in their basements or something, on the cell phones, because everyone's getting rid of their landline because they don't need it anymore. Those microwaves need to penetrate through the brick wall and get to there and to the phone. And that causes induction in the body, and that goes right down into the child. And we wonder why all our kids are having these learning disabilities, defects, and problems. We're microwave radiating them before they even have a chance to develop. Health Canada is telling you this is safe for your children. And even this, we got to make sure the babies don't get lost in the hospital. So the second they're out of the womb, we're putting microwave tracking devices on them. Baby monitors. We talked about SIDS earlier. There's something else called now SADS, sudden adult death syndrome. Kids are dropping dead in school from heart attacks. 24-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 15-year-olds. We keep pulsing these frequencies into their body, and these are the things that start to happen. Now we have baby monitors. And so you can see if your kid's safe, and you can know what's happening with your child. Now they send the microwaves out, so you can have your little wireless baby monitor and walk around and send those frequencies directly through your child. We're starting to see every second of every life of every day of our kids and ourselves, we're going to be doing this stuff. Wi-Fi in the schools, as Curtis talked about, and we all are lobbying so hard to try and get this out of the schools. They're already removing the Wi-Fi in many schools. Entire countries in Europe are removing Wi-Fi because we don't need Wi-Fi in schools. Children and people can come in the school and sit down on a station and keep the wire there rather than removing the wire and inducing the children. It's a faster connection, you get your tradespeople more jobs, and you keep people safe. Here's studies. They always talk about hydro. Well, we like to deal with accountable people, who they're accountable with. Reputable is the word, as if to say that what we're talking is not from reputable sources. We're talking about Yale. Thousands of studies. Here they're talking about cell phone use in pregnancy may cause behavioral disorders in offspring. ADHD are caused by cell phone exposure in the womb. Do you start to understand what's happening now? Every single kid seems like they have ADD in school. Remember back in your time, there was probably 1 or 2 kids that maybe had something, they acted up a bit. Now every kid has to have Ritalin just to pay attention. And I want to talk about that. Hydro also likes to talk about, when they did the presentation to City Council, well, there's a Wi-Fi router over here, and you can get 3 Wi-Fi connections, and coffee shops have them, so it's okay. Nobody's dropping dead instantly. Well, first, that has happened, and second, it doesn't mean we're not causing effects on people. So it is not the excuse, it's the problem. It's not the excuse to add more Wi-Fi, it's a problem that we need to get rid of. You can see in the children's brains as well. This is an adult, which is that little mannequin Curtis showed you, a Sam. It's an adult based on a military man, 6'2" and 230 pounds, for that heat effect, the thickness of the skull. What about children? What about their skulls? Underdeveloped, immune system's not fully developed till about the age of 18, immune system controlled by the pineal gland, melatonin, serotonin, the antenna, changing the electricity. All these kids have asthma, all these other problems. Then we start growing up and we say, let's go to work. And we got Wi-Fi routers everywhere. Oh, because it's faster and we don't need to hook up the wires. And I can walk over here and my computer works. Then we have something called SmartMeters and gas meters and so on, doing all these other things, blasting these frequencies out. Again, can we see where we're going to start to have problems? Blanketing entire cities with Wi-Fi and all these other devices. I apologize for the inability for the screen to work out as good as I can see on my computer. Again, Curtis talked about this. 1 kilogram, 1 degree, 6-minute test, no heat, 0.9999 degrees, someone heats up, you can have as many of those devices in your house as you want. Your health is being based on a test on a mannequin for 6 minutes. That's all. So when they say, the industry guys say, well, there's no studies that show effects, this is what they're talking about. If they don't heat up in 6 minutes to a degree they've deemed unsafe, they call it no biological effects, and they sit with that. And everyone else is saying, guys, come on, you're radiating and sending electricity through people's bodies. That has an effect. So this is, in plain English, where the two sides are. The denial of your electrical properties, the acceptance and admittance of your electrical properties. That's all. They talk about they don't want to do tests on people because it wouldn't be ethical. And cell phone industry, such an ethical people to microwave radiating at least 5 billion people alone with cell phones, let alone Wi-Fi and all the other stuff. So now they're marketing cell phones directly to babies. That is their ethical nature. And of course, their ethics right here. The minute they get out of the womb. Okay, so this is just a graph to display that to you guys. Again, microwave radiation, short term for thermal effects. That's all they're doing. They're leaving out all these other things. Low level, long-term exposures, multiple exposures, exposures over long periods of times. Doesn't matter, they don't care. So this, again, is the basis of your safety. Accountability. I like the military documents. Why is the military? Because they are accountable. Cindy Verschure at Hydro is not accountable. John Blatherwick is not accountable to anything but his paycheck. These guys are accountable to the life and death of the soldiers. Can we hurt people? Can these guys hurt us? How do we protect ourselves? Are they going to use microwave weapons? We need to know what this does to our guys. That, to me, is accountability. What do these studies say? 2,300 studies. Now, when did this happen? This was starting to be done, and this document was produced in 1976. Your government knew this even then and even before that. What did these studies find? Curtis talked about it. You guys with the phones in here. Impotence. Changing the electrical function in switches of that thing right there. Oh, lack of concentration, loss of memory. Now we remove ourselves from the situation. This is not my opinion. This is facts. This is the military finding this, among thousands of other studies. How about altered pituitary function? You know that gland that allows your child to grow up properly? that gland being altered. For the women in the audience, sometimes gaining weight, losing weight, it never seems to work out, always problems, emotional. Hyperthyroidism, thyroid enlargement. That's bad for anybody. This is what the military is telling us, and it's not just about high-powered weapons, it's across the entire spectrum. Again, headaches, insomnia, okay? Changes in the operation of implanted cardiac pacemakers. Military knowing this stuff since the 70s, so we have a real issue. This is not our opinion. These guys telling us, the experts even. Altered menstrual activity. Altered fetal development. So how do these things happen if there's no biological effect? How did they come up with all this from 2,300 studies in just this one study if there's no biological effect? Here we have another military document. I told you why I like them. Radio frequency waves. 100% of the population would be susceptible. Why is that? Because 100% of the population is electrical. So they know this. They've understood this for a very long time. Talking about reputable, going through the military. Now we move to the Environmental Protection Agency, compiling data all across the spectrum. 574 pages listing studies showing effects. 3,627 of them. Page after page after page after page listing studies. This is just a central nervous system. You know that thing that runs your entire body? That's that right there. More again, I'll talk about something showing the increase in exposure from radars and those types of devices causing increased mortality and death rates and problems, doubling cancer, other types of diseases, total death. Part of what I was telling you earlier, when they switched from propellers and they started to need more and more of this stuff, they started to say, let's just increase the limits so we can't be liable, so we can make sure. And then we can sell cell phones and do all this other stuff. So again, we're showing study after study after study. Permanent genetic damage, right here. All this stuff, we're showing it directly inside the DNA of your body. This is undeniable stuff. Now we move into what BC Hydro is talking about. 3 to 4 times a day. This is what they've told your city councils. There'll be volume on this. So
And there's the background levels. That's what it should be. It's over 2,000.
that's your smart meter and what it will be doing every single day for the rest of your life. 3 to 4 times a day, Hydro told us. That's 3 to 4 times in probably a span of 10 seconds. You start extrapolating that out, you're starting to get to the tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands. Pulses running not only into your wiring, but directly into your body. Little Johnny's running around, going to the sandbox. The other meter, communicating with that meter. All these things happening. There's going to be more video here. Look at how far away he is from those meters. Now we move into the routers. All day long, forever. I think we get the point. Now, either it's a pure and exact coincidence that each time all those were measuring the pulses, the smart grids are not designed to pulse 3-4 times a day. That's not what they're designed to do. They are exactly according to industry data designed to pulse all day, every single day, to communicate with each other, to make sure all this stuff functions. So we start to move into the hundreds of thousands and millions of pulses a day. And that's when they talk about this 20-minute cell phone call stuff, it's all safe. They're only talking about 1 meter. And they're only putting it out to say, oh, it's 3 to 4 times a day. So that's how we get to this 20-year number. It's an absolute lie. You guys want to know, what was on that guy's meter? What was he measuring there? What's going on, Brian? Okay, that meter was conking out about 2 because it was blasting over 2. So God knows what it went up to. But altered white blood cell activity in school children. Headache, dizziness, irritability, fatigue, weakness, insomnia, chest pain, difficulty breathing. This is the Canadian Human Rights Commission. Reputable. We're talking about accountability again. Biochemical and histological changes in the liver, heart, kidney, and brain tissue. Now, why is that? Because they're all electrical. Are we starting to see what's going on? This is what they've left out. The meter-to-meter communications all day long, chattering with each other. Those meters communicate with each other to make sure the meter is still there. Where is that meter actually going? Why is that function even there? We don't understand. So when Hydro says, you know, it says to your city councilors, there's a lot of misinformation out there. How about missing information? Totally missing everything. You didn't even say a word about the routers. You talk about billing data going back and forth 3-4 times a day, something like that. What about the meter-to-meter communication? You left that out too. Why didn't you tell us that? Why can't you at least give us all the information so we can make an informed decision? Meter banks. How many people in BC, how many people in this exact town are on the underside of the wall of one of those? Or somewhere, even in an apartment building with all this stuff going on every single day, this massive wall of radiation. And they talk about, oh, well, it's like 1 meter because no, they don't have a function to communicate like that. They're designed, every meter goes in and does the same thing. They don't change their program around. They communicate and chatter all day long. So they blast back and forth all day long into each other. So, PG&E, BC Hydro, down in California, that's who PG is. Think about it that way. They were forced by the court of law to say, yeah, you know, we were telling you there was a couple times a day. It was actually about 14,000 times a day. And some of the houses, about 190,000 times a day. Those pulses running through your body and your kids. These are the signals bouncing from homes to homes. This is what Hydro doesn't even tell us about. They just decided to magically leave it out. This is what I'm talking about here, so you can see the representation. This house, that might be your house. You might be the lucky one that only gets 14,000 pulses. They start routing these around to all the meters and getting it to here, to the final router billing station. And if you can't see this, this says 3 to 4 miles. Imagine the power required to send that signal and the power that's going to be running through your bodies. So you might be the lucky one to be in one of these collector houses, getting everyone else's signals all the way to your house. They're not going to tell you who those people are. But if you're living close to a router, which, by the way, I've seen 2 of them now that are already going up, chances are the closer you are to that is you're going to be the one getting that higher dosage. Accountability. Here's John Blatherwick. John Blatherwick is the one that they're looking at your city councils and all your other political parties or whatever and saying, don't worry, John Blatherwick has approved this. He is the approval man, so let's listen to what John Blatherwick has to say, and let's just recall the words accountability.
You're assuming that there's a huge increase. There won't be. And I think we'll be able to show that.
Hydro is adding up all these microsecond bursts of energy, which are only fractions of seconds. And they add them all up together and it comes to 2 or 3 minutes a day. And they say on average, we're only transmitting 2 or 3 minutes a day. When in fact, they are transmitting every couple of minutes at a fairly powerful burst of energy. And do you know anything different about that?
No. The answer is I can't debate that with you because I do not know. I do not know the specifics. So the answer is I can't debate that with you.
Okay, so as it stands right now, because
That is the authority. That is one of the authorities that they cite when they go around to your city councils, is accountability. John, do you know anything going on with the program? No, I don't. I have no idea what the meters do, how many pulses they go off a day, and guess what? He actually can't know. because he doesn't know each meter. Now we're starting to put a new equation on every single person's house. Here's the other authority, of course, the BC Provincial Health Officer. What else does he have to say? Clearly, some biological effects from electromagnetic frequency radiation, but let's put them on the houses anyway, and I will approve them. Even though I know there's biological effects, I'm going to sign off on them. The two people that Hydro cites to approve these, this is what they have to say. Let's go even further about John Blatherwick. John Blatherwick says, if you truly are harmed by this level of radiation, you can't live in a major city. Now, let's go back to our military documents. What did our military documents say? 100% of the population would be susceptible. This is serious business, folks. Here's some more study. 8,000 research articles on animals, suppression of the immune system. Again, animals, electrical, same types of properties as all living things. So, after all this stuff, here we have PG&E is already removing the smart meters in California due to health effects. So this is already happening. They know what's happening down there, but they keep steamrolling ahead, and I'm going to explain why they are. They also walked into your city council office and they said, radio safe. Everybody knows that. Really, that's fantastic. Why? Just a few days ago, actually, the court ruled in Italy the Vatican was liable for increasing cancer rates around its radio station. So is that safe? Increase of cancer means safety, apparently, to BC Hydro. What does Health Canada and BC Hydro have to say after all these thousands upon thousands upon thousands of studies? After decades of research, there are no demonstrable health or environmental effects from exposure to low-level radio frequency signals. That's what they have to say. So when Cindy Verschuer sits there and says to your city council, you know, I've done my research. Cindy, you haven't done your research. All you are accounting for is heat effect, and this is where this comes from. I've done my research. A lot of the volunteers have done their research. It's quite easy to find these documents if you want them, and you guys know in your heads and hearts right now who's telling the truth, I'm sure. Finally, we are still trusting Health Canada. Is that what we're doing? Okay. I like to trust people with decent track records, perhaps who haven't stolen or done something. You start building a level of trust. Why do we trust Health Canada still when they told us lead was safe? When they told us DDT was safe? They still believe pesticides that kill organisms are good for us to ingest when it gets in our drinking water. Asbestos, safe. Dozens of prescription drugs that ended up maiming, hurting, and killing people were safe. Tobacco was safe. Chlordane, trans fats, and mercury fillings, one of the most toxic substances to man, they allowed to go into people's mouths. Why is it that we are trusting them now to give us the okay to microwave radiate an entire population, including our kids, and changing all these electrical functions? I don't know if I even have to speak to this picture. This is what we're doing right now. Cell phones into the children, smart appliances, all these green things around. Then we have the cordless phones, the routers for the computers. Oh, water meters you're going to be forced to get soon if we don't start acting up. Hydrometers, gas meters, cell towers, collector hubs and stations. All these things safe. I do believe it is time we start taking a stand and acting up before things get progressively worse, which of course they will if we don't. What are the alternatives? Curtis was talking about it. I'm going to talk about it right now. Wiring, like we did a while ago, and in society worked out just fine. Do we really need to be driving with our cell phone on? We have faster connections. We have a more reliable grid. We keep the radiation out of people's bodies. We keep the voices and everything inside the cords. We remove ourselves from electrical equations we don't belong in. So when they say, oh, you're afraid of change and, oh, you know, all this other stuff, no. There's a safe way to do things. That's all we're asking for. Follow the money. Surely you guys must know by now that there is a money trail at the end of this little pot of gold for a few people. So we see all these members here on the board of Hydro, or friends of people on the board of Hydro, or friends of people and or in the current Liberal Party, or were in the Liberal Party. I'm not a PC, I'm not an NDP, I'm not a Liberal. I have no denomination or political affiliation whatsoever. I could care less because this issue stretches all party lines because it affects you guys. What I want to point out to you guys is all these people here, most of them actually, maybe one or two left out, are all shareholders in a company called CAI Capital Management. What does CAI Capital Management own half of the shares of? A company called Corex. The guys who got the contract to install your meters and will be installing meter after meter every 5 years or so ago when your microwave transmitter, two-way that's been installed on your house, conks out. Instead of your normal analog meter that lasts about 50 years. So here we go. This is all a money game. So they've created the legislation to say, look, we're on the board of Hydro and we're on the board of the party in power, so we're going to create the legislation. And then they say, well, we're at Hydro. We just have to obey the law. So this is what happened. And they're lining their pockets with your guys' money. That's all that's happening. They're forcing everyone to pay for this program to funnel money back into their pockets and their shareholder pockets. That's all that's going on, folks. So guess what the deal is? You guys are in the way of their paycheck. How long is this going to be happening for? Look, they've already got it set up. BC Hydro and Corex. We're all buddies here. Everything's fine. You know, we're two companies working together. Magically, BC Hydro disappears. All of a sudden, it's Corex Hydro. Are we looking at a takeover of Hydro? Anybody remember BC Rail, ferries, any of that stuff? Is this stuff just going and going? Now, how much did we really act when that was happening? So they just move on to the next scam and scheme. Mandatory meters equals mandatory smart appliances. Industry people are going to tell you meters are nothing in this equation. They're just the top of the little pyramid and all the money cascades down from there. So they got to get the meters in first so you guys can buy all kinds of little smart appliances and smart devices, and everything's so smart. So what do we have here? 3 billion to 15 billion in 4 years in the smart appliance industry. A 500% increase in 4 years. Wow. Looks like a lot of people are going to get rich. So now all your old appliances aren't going to be compatible with the smart appliance, and I'll explain how that works in a little bit. Now, all they've basically done is created a new market and industry for all their buddies to make piles and piles of money off of you. Here's the smart grid news. Again, this is not my word. I take it from the industry. This is the guys who tell us. Bottom line, we're going to need a lot of sensors and monitors, and somebody is going to make billions selling them. The money isn't even in the smart meters. That's the linchpin. Once that gets in, it's smart appliances. Retrofit your entire house. How many people can afford that? It's a taxpayer subsidized profit grab. Top companies, this is CNN money, again, not opinion. Network and other communications equipment. Well, surely that's how you make money if you force markets on people. And of course, the number 3, pharmaceuticals. So we start hurting people, creating disease. Well, who else is going to make money off of that? Interesting stuff. Itron, IBM, Cisco, all the guys that make these profits, the big business boys. Here we can already see, well, I can see, maybe you guys can't. Itron, TELUS, BC Hydro, Itron, BC Hydro, TELUS, all on the same routers. We're all buddies here. We're all gonna make a big pile of money. These are the routers I'm talking about, and you guys saw in that picture that are gonna be going up in your neighborhood to collect those frequencies. All of them making piles and piles of money off you guys. We don't even need this stuff. We can simply stick with our grid. Electricity really hasn't changed. You deliver the electricity, use the analog meter, everything's fine. What we see is a revolving door gravy train between the industry and government. You know, our former public safety minister now works for TELUS. Our former industry minister now works for Bell. So do you believe truly that they had our best interest in safety at heart when they knew they had cushy jobs waiting at private companies waiting for them? Of course not. That's not how it works. Accountability. I told you guys about the company. You know, signed, sealed, and delivered is what Cindy Verschuur told your city council. They're all an independent company. Let's talk about this independent company. This company is called PlanetWorks. So they did a test at a bank of 10 smart meters to say, hey guys, everything's safe, don't worry here. Accountability. Carl Reardon is and was Director and General Manager of Motorola. Very independent indeed. Collecting paychecks from consultation on cell tower installations. Surely his opinion is objective and he doesn't want to compromise any of that stuff. Holder of 7 US and EU patents on wireless and data technology, and it goes on and on and on. Accountable to who? His money, his wallet, and his patents. That's it. Not to you, not to BC Hydro, to nobody, but himself and his money. So, this is from their data. Independent engineering study found no risk. Of course they found no risk because you weren't heating up and they set the meters up to go off 3 to 4 times a day as they're telling you that they went off, and they get their 20-minute cell phone call nonsense. Health Canada researchers also get paid by Motorola. Who is accountable to who? Are you guys getting the feeling that you might decide you want to act up about this and take a stand for what's happening, starting to understand this equation? Again, the same Health Canada. Conservation and savings, Curtis touched on that. Your guys are going to save so much money. This is going to be such a great idea, have this new grid. How much electricity are all these smart meters going to use, by the way? And who's going to pay for them? How much electricity does your analog meter use? How much electricity does all these routers require? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for the build out of all that stuff? You guys are. Powering the world at our expense. BC Hydro, which is now, by the way, IPPs, independent power producers, who take all the profits, and Hydro exists as an entity to pay for all the liabilities, the programs, the software upgrades, all this stuff. So they basically created a debt agent, which is now BC Hydro, and the IPPs, the profit. We build it out, we use all your power lines and transmissions, and we sell all your power down to the States. You guys get the debt. So they're talking about, BC is such a desirable place, trying to pull on the heartstrings of people and say, yeah, it is a desirable place. That's true. Over the last 5 years, 50,000 gigawatt hours, flatline. That's it. Where do they get this 50% increase over the next 20 years number? Where does that actually come from? That number is used, and by the way, we're currently sending $2.6 billion worth of extra electricity to the United States now, according to the CD Howe Institute already. And we're still wanting to produce more power. Why are they telling us this? Because they are trying to make all these massive projects in BC to ship power down to the States where they can sell it at a massive premium. But it's not BC Hydro selling that. That's the independent power producers. Now, they can make all this power in BC, but under NAFTA, they're not obligated to even sell it in BC. They can sell it to the highest bidder. Now, they say, oh, it's going to make the market more competitive. How much more competitive do the lowest rates in all of North America have to be, which is BC? That's not about competition. It's about forcing electricity down to California. Now we're going to start talking about rate increases. Why would rates increase? Because until we bid the prices that California bids, we're not going to get the power that's being produced in our own province. The BC government gives away the public rivers for free and gets them to finance the facilities and commit to purchase the power from them at exorbitant rates. And at the end of that process, the private company owns the river rights and the infrastructure and can sell their power to whomever they want for whatever they want forever. You guys build everything, the IPP walks in and says, thanks a lot, we'll take this run-of-river project now, all the profits go to them. That's how it's been set up. Did you guys even know this is happening in your province right now? Look at all the IPPs. Look at all the IPPs that are being made. Curtis talked about salmon, spawning, all these things. We're not even touching the biggest problem and damming up all these rivers. Now, why do they want to do this? Because it's so cheap. Why is it cheap? Because, of course, they can get you to pay for it, and they can ship all the power down to California for a massive profit. Basically, free money handed out to all the government's buddies. All for export, again. And they get to own everything after. So this is what I'm trying to establish something for you guys. BC Hydro debt will balloon to $5 billion, and it's actually much higher than that. We're talking about the tens of billions. Why are you even going ahead with this program? Why are you hiding the debt? This is not my opinion. This is the Auditor General talking here. But of course, and always, they had money to pay their bonuses for non-existent profit because they just deferred the debt so we can pay for it later. We're going to have exorbitant hydro increases. Now we start talking about economies. What does a city want to know? Decrease in tax revenues because they're not selling anything. They're only selling power to these IPPs. Decrease in economy. All these types of stuff. Pay an extra fee to opt out. Cindy Verschure said, you know what, if we're going to have multiple grids, I think the people who don't want a smart meter should be paying an extra fee because, you know, they're wanting to be an exception on the grid. Why do I have to pay an extra fee if I want a meter that's going to last 10 times as long and cost a tenth of the price? I'm the one who's making the smart decision, not the neighbor who wants to irradiate me and himself. So we're not even talking about upgrades, constant software upgrades, Corix, Microsoft, IBM. We're not even talking about data storage. We're going to be talking about 40 to 50 year lifespan for your analog meters. Your analog meters last forever. 5-year lifespan for a smart meter. Imagine leaving your cell phone outside in the blazing hot sun and then in the dead of winter and doing that for a few years. How long do you think that device is really going to last? How about your laptop or your computer? Of course it's not going to last forever, but that's the whole point. Because every 5 years, Corix can go around and make this cash cow money train to install the meters. So who should be paying more? Me or the guy who wants a smart meter? Will we save? Here's a pilot project showing absolutely no energy conservation. This is why I'm establishing this. There's nothing. Here's the Attorney General for the state of Connecticut. Pilot results showed no beneficial impact on total energy usage. Nothing. I know how to turn my lights on and off. It's not going to change my patterns at all. I change my patterns. Meters don't change my patterns. So this is a consumption. It's about conning you into believing, to buying into the program, because why would private companies want you to use less of their product? It's not about that. BC Hydro is now IPPs. Of course they want you to use more of their product because that means more money. So it's not about saving because that means money loss for them. Ratepayers are going to see rates jump 100, 300. Massive amounts. We've already seen that all over BC. A lot of you guys in the room, you were even telling me before the show, my friend had this, my buddy had that. This is happening all over BC. I'll tell you why this is happening. But first of all, that money, that billing, those massive increases, those IPPs can't keep their greedy hands out of your pockets. So all that money is not going to hydro, that's going straight to the IPPs. So they'll love a 3, 4, 500% bill increase, and BC Hydro say, too bad, pay up. Now, what are we missing in this equation? What about people 5%, 10, 15, 20% increase in their hydro bill? They won't even notice it. All that money, cha-ching, right to the IPPs. Rising prices, rising private profits. That's all this is about. So they'll start trying to make up excuses. Cindy Verschure told the story, you know, my friend and the meter, in 7 years it wasn't registering power and all this stuff, or they say stories like it was a cold winter. That's not what the facts say. That's what BC Hydro says. Or you put in a hot tub. Okay, let's say I put in a hot tub. Why did my hydro bill go up 400%? Well, how does a hot tub do that? Warmer winter blamed for falling demand. So the winter was actually warmer. 2.7 degrees warmer. Why is hydro telling us it was colder? More and more lies. Here we have right here, BC Hydro's own words. BC Hydro's meter reading and billing accuracy is at 99%. Probably the most efficient aspect of our government needs to spend billions and billions of dollars to get 1%. Is this what we're doing? Here again we see 98.6% of all analog meters measured within 2% of the registered energy use. That's a pretty good thing. And especially now when Cindy Verschure has told her little story to your city council saying, oh, 7 years and it wasn't. Measurement Canada is the one who comes around checking those meters every year or every other year. So they're certifying the meters, and then she's trying to say that, oh, her friend's meter, it's a lie. It's an absolute bold-faced lie. Privacy. This is the industry. This is what they're pushing for, not my opinion. Facebook, all this stuff, gathering all of the data, and they're putting this into the cloud. You're going to start hearing more and more about the cloud. What is the cloud? I will explain. All this data going in and being sold off. They know when you're going to run out of orange juice, and Tropicana is going to bid with McCain for the rights to advertise through your fridge to you to buy their orange juice. Who's going to sell that data? Corix. Here we have the centers that are going to store all this data. This is one of 2 facilities in Kamloops. Do you know the massive amounts of electricity required to store all this data, and we're being told we need to conserve? This is what they're doing. This is already being built right now. Here's TELUS, again, remember our buddies? Cloud Computing Solutions. The new facility will be cornerstone cloud computing. This is about cloud computing. I'll explain that. Again, knowing your behavioral patterns. And what else at the very bottom here? Additionally, utilities that can monetize the value of the data can create an unforeseen revenue stream. So BC Hydro says, well, we comply with all the privacy laws and the privacy commissioner, so we're in compliance, so everything's okay. These guys are the ones that want to sell your data. So what do? They changed the privacy law. That's what they did. So now your information isn't even your information. They can sell it to whoever they want. Can you guys see the absolute levels of corruption and greed that are going on here? Talking about spying, and people say, oh, the smart meter people, the smart meter's not capable of doing that. We can't do that. No, we can't know that. Here's the accountability. CIA chief, we're going to spy on you through your dishwasher. And guess what? No laughing matter. They can and they will. When you're inside a microwave cloud, any information about any electrical thing, even in the field, can be pulled out. That means you. So when the CIA chief says, items of interest will be located, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled, he's talking about you. Through cloud computing. I'm going to show you how the smart meter is the setup for this. Again, items of interest. Look at, we have the cloud. Monitoring and controlling your heart. This is the industry data. This is not me. This is not my opinion. You can see how when they run all those microwaves through a house, you create a giant microwave cloud, and that's exactly what the smart meter does. I'll explain why. Security. Talking about hacking, no, the white hat hackers, they tried to even break the first level, Cindy Verschure said, and they couldn't make it through. That's very interesting stuff. How are hackers breaking into the CIA, the Pentagon, NATO, and every other person you can imagine? How are they breaking into the Department of Homeland Security and controlling their drones? Students at a university. This was June 27th of this year. This problem will never go away. So we've opened ourselves up to an entirely new arena. And BC Hydro is going to tell us that this little meter on your side of your house cannot be hacked. What else can be hacked? The sending of your data out to all the other meters, pulling that data out of the air with a simple computer and knowing when you're home, when you're not home, how much power you're using, if it's just your wife home, if it's just your kids home. Accountability. Here's the security pros. Questioning the deployment of smart meters, explaining exactly how they can be hacked. 4 ways to hack the smart grid. Oh, the white hats, again, they tested it. Why didn't they find this stuff? Here they go, breaking it down to showing, we're talking about BC Hydro. Remember telling your city council that we're going to save $100 million a year in theft, and that's going to benefit all the consumers. Absolutely no power consumption at all. They're already able to fake the readings on the smart meter. They don't even have to clip a cable, do nothing. They can just software program the meter. You guys get to pay the higher bills because the IPPs aren't getting their money. So $100 million a year saving money for the ratepayers. Absolutely false. Hackers rewrite the smart meter power bill. Oh, energy data shows what movies customers were watching, breaking it down even to the point whether you have burned a DVD or you have bought it. They can know that. Accountability. Here's the FBI. Smart meter hacks likely to spread. Accountability. Why does the FBI know this and BC Hydro knows some magical solution? Why isn't BC Hydro telling the FBI all the systems they figured out? Accountability. Oh, security breach affects BC Hydro customers. Their billing center already being hacked. Shouldn't they maybe concentrate on that and getting that dialed in before they start moving over to smart meters? BC Hydro is already being hacked. We're going to talk about Cindy Verschure because she's mentioned it so many times, the marijuana, the dope growers, we're going to stop all of that, we're going to do all those things. You have just opened up a can of worms to a $7.5 billion a year industry, and now you've allowed them to get free electricity without even touching a wire. We talk about organized crimes. It's not just a bunch of guys riding around on bikes. They know this stuff. They know to hack and steal identities and do all these things. Now you've given them free electricity. You're not going to prevent that industry. That industry, I don't support it, but that industry is going to figure out a way to do all that stuff I just showed you.
People are concerned about house fires. Is there, that are caused by the smart meters? Is that a possibility?
There's absolutely no incidents of house fires being caused by a meter. Let me tell you how this meter works. First of all, this is a measurement device. It doesn't carry a charge. Basically what happens is the power comes in through the top, it gets measured, and it comes out through the bottom.
That's enough of her. Okay, the denial of the ability for hydro smart meters to cause fires, an absolute mathematical impossibility, and I'm going to show that to you. But I do want to show you a few examples already in BC and in other places of fires. Here's one on July 12th. Smart meter knocks out, stores power. I would be very concerned if I was these other businesses. We see a blown up smart meter here. I'll explain to you how that happens. Oh, Nanaimo, wiring burns after smart meter installed. Member Cindy Verschure, absolutely no way it can happen. Oh, here's Alberni, smart meter swap out sparks fire. That's what happens when you guys got 18-year-old kids doing a 2-week course messing around with your electrical grid. One day after installation in Mission, BC, 34 years of pure, clean electrical power, the day the smart meter goes on, fire burns the house. Wasn't the smart fire though. Smart meter. Pickering, Ontario, October 4th, 2011. Australia. California, smart meter fire. Georgia. Bakersfield, California. Naples, Florida. All over the place. Fire after fire after fire. Here's an interesting one. Huge bank of smart meters spontaneously combusting. That's your house. Your house. They force these meters on your house. This is the things that start to happen. Here's another one. Power surge, Palo Alto. Blew out all the smart meters. None of the analog meters in the neighborhood, by the way, were affected at all. Interesting. Here's an insurance adjuster. Real threat to the safety of your home, business, and property. I personally worked 2 large homeowner fires in which the smart meter were determined as responsible. Electrical trades unions in Australia, again, tells the government, guys, you can't do this. We want you to stop. Can you please listen to the professionals and stop what you're doing here? You're government officials. You have no idea what you're talking about. We're the professionals. Stop. Why does this happen? You saw Cindy Verschure holding up the meter. Your house wiring, as Curtis explained, it's a very simple equation. 60 hertz. All your appliances are running at 60 hertz. Everything's at 60 hertz. It's designed to be a specific way. It's a mathematical equation. Now when you have that meter communicating to the other meter, it is blasting a frequency into your grid at 928 million hertz into a 60 hertz grid. Mathematically now, do you think we have a problem? Yes. What do the smart meters and the Zigbee chip that's also in the meter that BC Hydro did not tell you about run at? 2.4 billion hertz. So now you're going to have 928 million hertz and 2.4 billion hertz simultaneously running through your 60 hertz grid. This is an issue. This is why we're saying, guys, stop these guys from putting these things on your house. City officials, you're risking all of your government buildings. Everything, your entire infrastructure. I'm not even talking about the drywall and everything else that Curtis was on about. I'm talking about just directly into your grid. BC Hydro is going to tell you there's a lead plate that is a shield. First of all, my statement to that is, shielding from what exactly? Why is there a shield inside my meter? Second of all, that meter, it's difficult to see this. There's 2 prongs here. They're saying this lead plate is here. If that lead plate is a shield, electricity can't make it into your house. There has to be a hole in the plate in order for this to communicate with this. It's simple. You can't have a giant lead plate, otherwise electricity is not going to go through. Lie, number one. Okay, now we have the meters communicating hundreds of thousands of times a day per meter to every other meter, forcing that electricity into your grid. So now that travels through. So Cindy for sure told your city council, there's no way these two things can get mixed up. There won't be a problem. Who cares? We know that. We're not concerned about that. We're concerned about the fact that you're blasting these frequencies directly inside of my 60 hertz grid. Think about something. Blown appliances happening all over BC, California, the States. Why? Same grid down there, 60 hertz. Why is this happening? Now you have the smart meters communicating with the smart appliances, and the smart appliances communicating back with the smart meter. So guess what happens here? You're blasting the frequencies all the way through the wiring of the house, and it's coming right back to the smart meter. And it's running around your grid for the entire day, for the entire life of that meter. So when she sits there and tells you there can't be a fire, do you guys really believe her? Come on, it's a mathematical equation. If that was a 60 hertz smart meter, I'd almost believe her. But it's not. The chips inside there, she didn't even tell your city council that there's a 2.4 billion hertz chip inside there. Hear how the cloud works. You're inside this cloud, so you're blasting the frequencies inside the house, and the whole house, yes, your house, and your apartment buildings is now a giant microwave box that you're sitting inside. But the fact that you are sitting inside that microwave box can allow them to pull any data out of that house that they want, and they can know exactly where you are in your house at any time they want. How does it work? Just think about this. If you have all these smart appliances blasting the frequencies, anywhere you walk, you're going to be in a disruption of the field. That's all it takes. The military's known this for a very, very long time. They've used this for a very long time. Now it's going to be in every house. And now, as well, TELUS has a wireless router on every single house. So now they've asked you to pay for a wireless router to run the internet. Now they can run whatever internet they want, and they've made you pay for all the routers. So you can see here the router to the meter to the router, meter to meter communication. Now your house is a giant microwave box. Remember the videos, the blasting of the frequencies. Last point for you guys, I know it's hot. Is Canada still a democracy? Is it a democracy? Do we actually live in a democracy? 55% vote against the meters at the UBCM. All the municipalities in BC gathered and they went down there. The event was sponsored by none other than BC Hydro, and they still voted against the meters. And our energy minister, Rich Coleman, said, you don't like the meters? Get off the grid or leave the province. That's the statements of a man who's got his hand out waiting for a big giant paycheck, and anything in the way of that is an issue. You, your kids, your bodies, your bees, your plants, your pets. 54 communities now have already voted for a moratorium here this night today. And moving forward, we're done and tired of moratoriums. It's time for bans. We need to ban these devices and band together. We have 54 municipalities that have said, we don't want your meters. Can we please have a moratorium or an opt-out? Too bad, you're getting them anyway. Now, I think you guys can understand why they create such a stance. Democracy doesn't matter when everything's in the way of paychecks. They say, oh, only maybe 1% or there's 1,000 people have had a complaint. We're showing the political representation of 3.5 million people saying, no, we don't want the meters. What is their answer? Too bad. So here we have Christy Clark, walking with our veterans with a nice photo op showing, I care about the veterans. You don't care about anything, and none of you guys do. You guys are sending these guys, our boys, off to war in Afghanistan fighting for rights and freedoms that we can't even have in our own country. And all the guys that fought in all the other wars and the women and everybody else and the mothers and the people that died and all that stuff, who cares? That's what they're telling us. So what does the grid really do? Skyrocketing bills, making privateers rich, risk security of your grid and your whole grid, sell your data for money, turns your house into a microwave box, creates inflation, more lost jobs, ruining the economy, blown appliances, mandatory smart appliances, causes fires, risks health of all organisms, increases consumption, and ruins the environment. Is that a smart grid? Is that a smart meter? Is that a smart idea? How could this happen? Follow the money, folks. That's all this is. You've been lied to. Your city council has been lied to. You're being sold an idea to generate massive piles of money for these guys so they can spy on you, so they can make you retrofit your home, so they can risk the health of your children, and they can make piles of money. Who do you trust your children's safety, money, privacy, security, democratic rights of choice with? These guys? These guys who buy out our legislators and do all this stuff? It's time we take a stand. I want to ask a question after. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you guys being here. This, what we're doing right now, needs to leave this room. If we could turn the lights on, please. We need to band together. That's better. Thank you.